Hey Grace Church, Michael Campbell here, family pastor, going over this Sunday's lesson, how it applies to our children, but also how it applies to us as primary disciple makers of our homes. And so we are going through the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, but specifically how Jesus taught about character. So if I give an example, like what do you think would happen if you stomped on a ketchup packet? Like, would you expect only air to escape the contents of the packet? But undoubtedly, the pressure of that stomp would result in an explosion of ketchup and perhaps maybe like a nasty shoe as well. But oddly enough, we don't always predict our responses to specific situations accurately. So in moments we are extreme pressure or a challenge, like we're actually surprised at our own responses and decisions at times, right? Like what came out of us. And the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5 contains what we often call the Beatitudes. So in those 8 verses, there's specific descriptions of people who could be seen in a negative light: poor, mourning, humbled, hungry, thirsty, persecuted. They're all words that describe a posture seen as less than favorable in our culture. Yet the text speaks of the blessing of each of them. And the blessings result through a God-centered perspective. The poor in spirit, hungry, humble, are those who have set their hope in God and his eternal kingdom. And the poor in spirit have recognized that they are utterly lost without God. Those who mourn acknowledge the guilt of their sin and pain of a broken world. The hungry and thirsty understand that nothing in this world will satisfy like Jesus will. So who we are isn't determined by how we respond to pain or hardship. However, our character is often displayed in these moments, and the choices that we make and the way in which we fill ourselves during the times of peace and rest often are revealed in those high pressure situations. So those being transformed by a power of God will display faithfulness and virtue in those times, and those not gripped by the Spirit of God will display their graceless attitude. So don't be surprised what you have filled yourself with comes out when you're pressed hard, and don't be surprised when God shows himself to you in a distinct way in those times of trouble. And I've heard this before, it's one of my favorite, like I've learned to kiss the wave that slams me into the rock of ages by Charles Spurgeon. In our times of trial, we should understand like what comes from the mouth comes from the heart genuinely. So out of the heart, the mouth speaks, Christ says. And so in any high or low, it should motivate us to live and to rest on the person and life of Jesus Christ. So this is what we're going into this weekend. It's an amazing lesson. So prepare your hearts and children as we enter into this week. But you'll notice on the rest of the thread some discussion questions, topics, memory verses, stuff like that. But till next week, God bless. Take care.